We really need to stop remaking old racist texts into something empowering for people of color and instead champion works, contemporary works, written by real people of color. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cheyenne and I'm an Asian American adoptee and expat living in Brazil. I post new videos every Tuesday and Friday about feminism, race, and pop culture, so if you're into that, please subscribe and ring the bell. And today we're going to be reviewing two fantasy books, and reviewing the casual racism in them, as well as casual racism in the fantasy genre as a whole. So part 1, Tiger Lily, the plot. So Tiger Lily is a book that was published in 2012, written by a white female author named Jodi Lynn Anderson. It tells the story of Tiger Lily, the titular character, through the eyes of the third-person omniscient narrator, Tinkerbell. So Tiger Lily is about, obviously, the titular character, and it's about her life in Neverland with her tribe and her adoptive father, TikTok. We never find out who Tiger Lily's birth parents are or where she came from, but she is explicitly Native American in the book, so that's, I guess, a good thing because they didn't try to whitewash her by saying that she washed up on the shore one day. Tiger Lily and TikTok are part of the Sky Eater tribe in Neverland. Of course, none of the tribes in Neverland are named after, actual Native American tribes. They're simply called the Swamp Tribe, the Cliff Tribe, and the Sky Eaters. And if you're wondering why Tiger Lily's dad's name is TikTok, it's actually kind of a boring story. Tiger Lily's dad's name is TikTok because he found a clock one day and thought the noise the clock made was so amazing that he had to be named after it. He has a renaming ceremony that's not depicted in the book, and we never find out what his first name was. Anyway, Tiger Lily is not liked in the village because she wants to do boy stuff, and also because her village or her tribe thinks that she can control crows. Crows are associated with Tiger Lily because after her enemies die, and a few of them do die, a crow usually sits by their corpse. For example, in Tiger Lily's backstory, after her bully dies, a crow sits next to her, and then after her mother-in-law, Aunt Sticky Feet, yeah, we'll get to the names, after Aunt Sticky Feet dies, a crow sits on her dead body. But Tiger Lily is also the daughter of the shaman in the book. TikTok is the oldest person in the village, and thus he holds a very important position. Aging in this book is really weird because you can stop aging at any age. So there are some moms who are younger than their daughters. One usually stops aging at an important life event or a life-changing event in one's life. So for Tiger Lily, she stops aging when she meets Peter Pan. So Tiger Lily is just 16 for the rest of her life. You do age mentally, but physically you are trapped in the age you stopped aging at. Anyway, Tiger Lily meets the Lost Boys and, of course, Peter Pan, and they fall in love. And this is their first real relationship. They're just trying to figure love out. I honestly find their relationship to be really sweet and honest. They're both unable to vocalize how they feel about one another, but that doesn't stop them from connecting with each other on a very deep level. They both feel unhappy with their situations in life, and they feel comfort in the escape they get with one another and with this relationship. And this is especially true for Tiger Lily, who is, of course, a tomboy and not like other girls. She finds real companionship with the Lost Boys, but she also sees them as very, very sad. The Lost Boys are described as emaciated and malnourished, and also lacking from love and parental guidance. So you'd expect this book to have a happy ending, right? Tiger Lily and Peter meet, they fall in love, the end. But of course it's not that simple because Wendy still needs to enter the picture. It's said that in Neverland, shipwrecks do occur every decade or so, and that's how Hook and his crew and the Lost Boys ended up on the island. Later in the story, Wendy does arrive on a boat, but before she comes, there's actually another shipwreck. Everyone dies on this shipwreck except for one man, and his name is Philip. Philip makes his way to the mainland, and Tiger Lily and her tribe see him, but they don't do anything about it or try to help him because they're afraid of aging. And that's because The tribe thinks that white people bring the disease of aging with them. So Tiger Lily actually risks her life to save Philip, and he recovers, and the village soon learns that, the disease of aging, I guess, is false. You can't catch it from other people or from outsiders, so they let him live in the village with them. And then, through some plot convention or another, Tiger Lily is pushed into an arranged marriage. I think TikTok arranged this with Aunt Sticky Feet. Yeah, that's her name. Again, we'll get to it. Because she didn't want Tiger Lily to live in the village with them when TikTok brought Tiger Lily to the village as a baby. I honestly forget what the contrivance was, but TikTok basically promised Tiger Lily to Aunt Sticky Feet's son when she was a baby. And keep in mind that Aunt Sticky Feet's son is 50 years old. Nothing ever happens between them physically, but that's freaking gross, and that really kind of made me dislike TikTok. But anyway, Tiger Lily is betrothed, but of course doesn't tell Peter. During this time, Tiger Lily and Peter become really close. They continue to use one another as escape mechanisms to leave the situations that they're both in behind. But by doing this, Tiger Lily neglects her friends, Pine Sap and Moon Eye, and also her father, TikTok. And unbeknownst to her, Philip has been converting the entire village to Christianity. Tiger Lily finally realizes what Philip has done after he forcibly cuts TikTok's hair in front of the entire village and forces him to wear men's clothes. In the book, TikTok is gender non-conforming. He doesn't go by other pronouns, but he likes to wear feminine clothes like dresses, and he likes to wear his hair long. And everyone in the village is okay with this until Philip shows up. Tiger Lily then feels as though everything is her fault, and she tells Peter that she's lied to him for all these months and that she's actually engaged to another man. She then dedicates herself to TikTok and tries to help him recover, but he eventually takes his own life. So then Tiger Lily goes to find Peter for comfort, but instead finds Wendy. A new boat has landed on the island, and they're here to get Philip and to set up new missionaries on the island. Wendy is then juxtaposed to Tiger Lily because she is everything Tiger Lily isn't. She is delicate, white, feminine, and also mothering and kind of a little bossy. Peter becomes totally enamored by Wendy because in the end he's just a man baby who wants a mom to tell him what to do. In the end, Tiger Lily, with her friend Pine Sap's help, execute a plan to get the missionaries to leave. Pine Sap is really good with bird calls, so he calls hundreds of crows to descend upon the village, and this scares the missionaries away and also scares the village into going back to their old religious beliefs. Peter and the Lost Boys leave with Wendy, and that's it. Tiger Lily waits for Peter to come back for days, if not weeks, but then Pine Sap confesses his love for her, and they get married and have kids. I should have mentioned that Tiger Lily's marriage to Aunt Sticky Feet's son happens, but then they both die, so Tiger Lily's free. And of course, Tiger Lily will never forget the white boy who broke her heart. So part 2, Tiger Lily, the problems. So I bought this book when I was first learning Portuguese. I went to the bookstore and I had no idea what it was about or who the author was. I just saw that the name of the book was in English and I recognized it, so I got it. I personally don't regret buying the book because I got a lot of use out of it, not only from learning Portuguese, but I read this book so many times, not because I wanted to give the author the benefit of the doubt, but rather the more I read criticism on it, the more I wanted to go back and reread it and really see the problems in it. I don't recommend buying it, but I do definitely recommend reading Debbie Reese's thoughts on it. Debbie Reese is the founder of the American Indians in Children's Lit site, and she's also a PhD in education. She has a doctorate. And lastly, she's a Nambi Pueblo Indian woman. And one of her first criticisms of this book is about the names. There's this offensive belief that Native Americans name people after the first thing they see in the morning. And it seems as though Anderson continues this very offensive tradition by naming her native characters after outlandish things and outlandish accidents that happen to them. For example, Aunt Sticky Feet is named that because one time she stepped in hot tar and got a chicken stuck to her foot. Besides the naming conventions, for a book named Tiger Lily rarely speaks. The book is actually told from Tinker Bell's perspective, who, because she's a fairy, can read people's thoughts and emotions. So Tiger Lily doesn't need to speak because we hear it all through Tinker Bell. I really just don't understand this point of the book, like why not center Tiger Lily's voice? And this leads me to my biggest problem with this book. It always centers whiteness. Tinkerbell, Wendy, Peter, Philip, the author, the list goes on. Tiger Lily is already based off like a pretty offensive stereotype of a Native American woman. Like, why would you do this, Jodi Lynn Anderson? Why? I want to give her like benefit of the doubt because I think that she thinks she's being respectful, but it just comes off as patronizing. Also, what is with white people thinking that Native people think that white people are magical or special because of their white skin, or they think that they're like gods or something, and thus believe everything they say? We see the natives as clueless and obsessed with colonialist culture. You know, we see them reading transcendentalist works and naming themselves after the sound a clock makes. This is extremely offensive, especially considering one of Reese's biggest criticisms, that her people fought to preserve their way of life. It's well known that Native Americans did everything they could to continue their way of life in the face of Christianity, but the villagers in the book are seen as foolish and easily duped. A few of the characters do question Philip's intent, but they're the minority. The rest of the village is totally on board with Christianity and giving up their centuries-old traditions. Like, come on. As for what Anderson based this book on, I definitely think it's more based on the Disney version of Peter Pan than the J.M. Barrie version of Peter Pan, because she tries to turn a lot of the Disney version on its head. For example, Tiger Lily is now the main character, her father is a shaman and not a chief, and the mermaids are described as hideous and kind of ugly, but they still are fond of Peter. Hook is described pretty much the same as in both versions, but Smee is described as like this dark, brooding murderer who gets off on killing people and fantasizing about murdering Tiger Lily. In the Disney version, Tiger Lily is only seen as kind of like half a noble savage because in the movie, her and her people are seen as corrupting forces rather than uncorrupted by man. We see the Native Americans smoking a pipe and they're seen as savages. But Tiger Lily in both works does play into this idea that she is a wild human. She is close to nature and untamed. In the Disney movie, Tiger Lily and her relationship with Peter is seen as wrong, and at least to Wendy, she's kind of seen as like a slut. Later in the Disney movie, Tiger Lily is willing to die for Peter in stoic silence. The main similarity with Anderson's book and the Disney movie is that Tiger Lily remains silent. In the book, Tiger Lily barely speaks. She's stoic and silent, and she's not gossipy or talkative like other girls. And of course, she's also exotic and othered. She plays into more stereotypes than she challenges, but I will give Anderson the benefit of the doubt and say that I think Tiger Lily is a well-rounded character in the book, at least half a character. She doesn't speak much, and of course she's not like other girls, but she does have needs, wants, emotions, and acts impulsively, like most teenagers. In the book, Tiger Lily is defiant, and that's really interesting. But it comes off as cliche because she's always described against other women. Wendy or Moon Eye. Moon Eye is another girl in the village who is more traditionally feminine and demure. And side note, Moon Eye is actually raped in the book by Tiger Lily's husband, who again is like 50 years old, and Moon Eye is around the same age as Tiger Lily. She's just a teenager. And it's not explicitly laid out in the book, but it's there. And in this book, there are only like 3 named male Native American characters. There's Tiger Lily's husband, who is a rapist. Then there's TikTok, who is off in the book by the author. And then there's Pine Sap, Tiger Lily's second husband, who is of course not like other boys because he's sensitive and bad at hunting. Whereas with white men in the book, or white boys, there's not only Philip and Peter, but all the other lost boys who are named. I think there's around like 8 of them, and they're smart, brave, and sympathetic. However, Peter is a little bloodthirsty. He's a murderer. Like, he kills someone in this book in cold blood. So there's that. I don't know, I just wanted to see more well-rounded Native American characters, but of course that's a lot to ask for from a white female author. We also never see the villagers as people Tiger Lily has known her whole life and who she can love and trust. We see the villagers as superficial and not very bright, aside from like 3 of them. The rest are either afraid of Tiger Lily or just don't like her, and Tiger Lily doesn't really like them very much. Then of course we have the juxtaposition between Tiger Lily and Wendy, thus the juxtaposition between white women and non-white women. And as Reese puts it, this is very troubling. Tiger Lily is described as hairy, and when the Lost Boys first meet her, they ask her if she's a boy or a girl. When Wendy arrives on the island, Tiger Lily immediately feels inferior. Because Wendy is white, she looks like a dove to these people, or a bird. She's seen as delicate and feminine and what a woman is supposed to be. In the end, Peter picks Wendy because he's a man baby and wants to be spoiled, and Tiger Lily wouldn't put up with his bullshit. But of course, Tiger Lily still mourns the loss of Peter even when she's married to Pine Sap. She still misses him decades later. And that's okay, I think that's a real feeling. But it just sucks that Tiger Lily constantly blames herself for why things with Peter went sour. I personally could relate to how Tiger Lily felt when she saw Wendy for the first time. White girls are seen as delicate and feminine, whereas non-white girls are seen as manly and boyish. But as an adult, I have this hindsight and self-awareness, whereas if I was a kid reading this, I would definitely be like, what's wrong with me? I know Peter chooses Wendy because he wants to be coddled. He basically wants to have a mom, a cheerleader, and a sex robot all in one. But a kid wouldn't know that. In Rachel Rostad's poem to J.K. Rowling from Cho Chang, one of the most poignant things that she said was that girls that look like us are told and taught to cry over boys that look like them. And that's like really fucking shitty. And Anderson doesn't do anything to change that narrative in any way. The next problem is that Anderson wanted to create a dark fairy tale, but instead of dark, it just came off as very offensive. TikTok is transgender, and that's really interesting and cool, but it has an all too depressing end. That could have gone somewhere really positive, but Anderson wanted to make a statement and killed off TikTok, when the real political act would be letting TikTok live, you freaking coward. There is some commentary with Christianity and Philip and wanting to bring civilization and whiteness and whatever, but it just comes off as bad because the villagers don't have a mind of their own. They're seen as very easily swayed and very monolithic. We also never learn what the tribe's original language was before English was brought to the island. And in the book, English is called a gift, but is it? It's very well known that tribes today are doing everything they can to preserve their original languages and their native languages. So for Anderson to just come in and say, well, everyone just speaks English is very insensitive. This is a problem with white people trying to repurpose and empower non-white fictional characters. The non-white fictional characters that these authors want to empower cannot be made empowering if they were racists from their conception. If Anderson actually wanted to do the legwork and give Tiger Lily a real tribe and a real language, it would take her decades of scholarly work and research, but this is what Disney does. They enable white people to take non-white cultures and characters and do whatever the fuck they want with them without any research or repercussions. Disney creates this seed of interest in non-white cultures, but that seed never grows beyond a small sapling. Tiger Lily is a dark book, but like Reese says, not for the things that it's being praised for. Showing Native American culture as oppressive and backwards and showing them as easily duped by white people is not radical. Killing off your only gender non-conforming character is not radical. Implying the rape of an underage Native girl by an adult Native man is not radical. Having a Native woman cry over a white man is not radical. Native American people are not fantasy characters. Native American people exist and are thriving in today's world. If you want to read Native American fantasy books written by actual scholars and Native American authors, I suggest The Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse and The Marrow of Thieves by Shahri Dimalin. So, part 3. The Golden Compass, the plot. So, The Golden Compass is the first book in Philip Pullman's trilogy entitled His Dark Materials, which came out from 1995 to 2000. The plot of the book is pretty easy to explain, but the fantasy parts require a lot of explanation. So the book revolves around Lyra Belacqua, who is, of course, not like other girls, big shock. On page 20, Philip writes, Ela teria chorado se fosse outro tipo de menina, which means she would have cried if she was another type of girl. And that's again on page 20. Lyra is a tomboy, she gets into trouble, but she's also effortlessly smart. Lyra lives in a world similar to ours, but not quite. In her world, they have demons, and demons are physical manifestations of your soul in the form of an animal. The demons shapeshift, but they stop sometime during puberty, and they only take one animal form, and they're also the opposite gender from you, and yeah, we'll get to that. Anyway, in Lyra's world, children begin to disappear, and the first children to disappear are the Egyptian children. So the word Egyptian is based on a slur for the Roma people, and yeah, we're gonna get to that later too. Anyway, the Egyptian children are the first ones to disappear because the government doesn't give a shit about them. There's Pullman's biting commentary. The next children to go are the poor children, and one of them happens to be Lyra's best friend Roger, so Lyra sets out on a quest to go find Roger. Lyra then meets Miss Coulter, and she is going on an expedition up north and wants Lyra to come with her. Miss Coulter, again, is not like other girls, or I should say women. She's basically a typical white feminist girl boss who has climbed to the top in a world controlled by men, but has brought no other women up with her. Anyway, Coulter is going up north, and that's where the children are said to be taken. So Lyra is hyped to go with her and save Roger, except she later finds out that Coulter is abusive. At first, Lyra is enchanted by Miss Coulter because she never had a female figure in her life, but it turns out that Coulter, like I said, is abusive and also physically hurts Lyra and emotionally manipulates her. Lyra then runs away from Miss Coulter and meets up with the Egyptians, and they all decide to head north together. She also shows them the alethiometer, which the dean of the college she was living at gives to her to then give to her uncle, Lord Asriel, who's also being held as a prisoner up north. So the alethiometer is a truth-telling device. If you ask it a question, it will give you a truthful answer. And it turns out that Lyra is a genius at the alethiometer. She can read it like no one else can, when it usually takes years, if not decades, to perfect this skill. The Egyptians also tell Lyra of her parentage. It turns out that Miss Coulter is actually her mom, and that Lord Asriel is actually her dad. Anyway, they go up north together, and Lyra discovers that it's actually Miss Coulter, her mom, who is behind the kidnappings, and Lyra also discovers what she's been doing to these children. Coulter has been cutting kids off from their demons through a procedure called intercision. Basically, Lord Asriel and other scientists discovered dust up north with special steampunk technology. The church or magisterium doesn't really know what dust is or what to do about it, but Coulter then convinces them that it's original sin. And she uses like photographs to prove this, because in the photographs we can see that there's a lot of dust coming off of adults, but no dust coming off of children. So Coulter thinks that if they cut children off from their demons, they cut that spiritual connection, they won't have dust on them when they grow up to be adults, and therefore they won't have sin. It doesn't really make any sense, but there it is. They also meet an armored bear on the way to help save the children, and his name is Yorick. Armored bears are essentially anthropomorphic polar bears, and they're seen as heathens to the church because they don't have demons, but they do have armor that they can make, and that is kind of like a demon for them or a soul. Lastly, it's important to note that in this world they have witches, and witches can live for centuries, and they have their own social network of clans. But the most important thing you need to know about them is that only women can be witches. There are some men rumored to be witches, but it's mainly a female species, and witches can have viable offspring with humans, but if their kid is a boy, then they're gonna be human, but if they're a witch, or if they're a girl, they're gonna be a witch. And it makes me wonder, like, are all the witches sisters or something? Like, I don't know. So part 4, the Golden Compass, the problem. So when Pullman had this idea for his Dark Materials and the Golden Compass, he didn't really have an audience in mind. He said he wanted to write a fantasy trilogy for both kids and adults, and I think that's great. But it's also very tricky to do that, especially because he wants this seemingly YA series to be the reverse Paradise Lost. The book even starts with a verse from Paradise Lost, and his Dark Materials is actually a line from the poem. And honestly, a lot of the religious stuff in this book just goes over my head. I just don't get it, even as like an adult. And the world building is so freaking confusing. I did so much research on the world building, and I still don't get it. I do want to give him credit because it is a really cool concept, especially for kids, demons, who doesn't want a little animal to be always with them? And also, like, for adults, sin and, the church and all of these things. But with this kind of lore, you either have to go all in or have very, very basic world building, and he does neither. In an interview, Pullman said that he never really thought about how the demons come into existence or how they're born. He just said that the parent's demon names the child's demon. Like, in all, the world building just ends up being very confusing because Pullman didn't really have an audience for this book or this series. Another huge problem with this book, or with the demons specifically, is that they have very intense class and gender implications. Demons begin to settle around puberty, and they only take one animal form at that point, but it's also implied that your demon is related to your class and also like your perceived intelligence. For example, the more intelligent or high class you are, the more exotic your demon is. For example, Lord Asriel's demon is a snow leopard, and Miss Coulter's demon is a golden-haired monkey. The Tartars, who are all evil, by the way, and have basically no lines, all have wolves as their demons. The servants at Oxford all have dogs as their demons because, for example, on page 14, there's a line that goes: O administrador era criado, então seu demon era cadela. Mas como criado de alta categoria, seu cão também era superior, ser vermelho. So this basically says that all the servants have dogs as their demons, but because this servant is of a higher category, his demon was also superior. It was a red setter. Like, if the demon settled during puberty, like, this has so many implications. And sorry, that quote actually doesn't say that all the servants have dogs as their demons, but on page 12 it explicitly says that. Lyra aprendeu a respiração a ver o demônio do criado, cão, como os demônios de todos os criados. Like, this literally says Lyra held her breath as she saw the demon of the servant, a dog, like all demons of all servants. And to add insult to injury, all of the demons of the Egyptians are birds. And apparently on page 54 it says that the Egyptian demons aren't as smart as Lyra's demon, who's white. It says that they have limited imaginations, desprezando a imaginação limitada daqueles demoníacos. And then it goes on to say that Lyra's demon transformou em dragão de tamanho de cão, because the Egyptians' demons aren't as imaginative as Lyra's demon, so they don't know that they could transform into, like, dragons, for example. And that, like, has, again, really eugenicist implications as far as class, race, and your perceived intelligence and your capacity for intelligence. It's pretty bad. It's just very odd to me that Pullman basically connects your demon to your intelligence and your class or your race, because it implies very eugenicist things that I don't think maybe he realized, or maybe he did realize. Either way, it doesn't matter how it was intended, it comes off as very, very problematic. Also, it implies that people may not have free will. Like, if your demon becomes a dog and during puberty, are you then predestined to be a servant for the rest of your life? Your demon is also based on whatever sex you're born at birth with, which is weird because what if you don't know your gender until later in life? Or, gender is a social construct. Like, this doesn't make sense. And on page 114, it says, Bernie era homem bondoso, solitário, uma das raras pessoas que tinham o demon do mesmo sexo. So he explicitly points out that this is very rare to have the demon of your same assigned gender, or I guess your assigned sex, and it's just like, what? I don't really get this, as gender is a social construct, and what if you don't know your gender identity, during puberty? Does your demon also change its identified gender? Like, how does God account for this? How does your soul account for this? I mean, this could be some interesting stuff, but I doubt that Pullman is ready to really delve into it, especially considering, he's also pretty racist. I'm gonna say racist. I mean, the Egyptian thing, come on. The Tartars, are basically supposed to be like Mongols, and they're all evil. Then, of course, there's the Turks, who are all slavers. And the only people who are good in this book are, or at least complex characters, are the white people. So, if he's not even ready to encounter his racial biases, who's to say his gendered biases? Lastly, the armored bears are seen as heathens and soulless to, the Western government, which is ruled by the church. Some critics have pointed out that Yofer, the good armored bear in this book, is a parallel to the noble savage, because he's seen as a godless heathen, but he's also seen as uncorrupted by man, and it's actually the white man who corrupts him. Sorry, I think I said before in the last clip that the good polar bear's name is Yofer. It's actually Yorick. Yofer is actually the evil polar bear who wants to have a demon because he wants to be seen as a God-fearing man, because, they don't have demons, so they're seen as godless. So he actually wants to have a demon, this evil polar bear. But because he wants to have a demon, he's also seen as evil because I don't know, I guess he's just evil because he wants that. And Yorick is seen as the good polar bear, the good heathen, I guess, because he knows his station. I don't know, it's really freaking weird. Like, all Yofer wants is equality by having a demon and to be seen as, you know, a regular guy, even though he's a polar bear. In all, Pullman wrote Lyra Belacqua's world similar to ours, but just different enough to try to get away with old racist stereotypes, but I'm not going to let him get away with it, and you shouldn't either. Lastly, in the TV show remake of Pullman's trilogy entitled His Dark Materials, they cast a multiracial group of actors to portray the Egyptians, but that doesn't really solve the problem. It would have been better if they hired Roma actors and Roma consultants, to work on the show with them, because casting a multiracial group of actors to portray the Egyptians doesn't really address the Egyptian problem, at all. So the conclusion. I'm just so sick of, these fantasy stories that are white-centric, but try to have racial subplots and subtext. Instead of reading and spending your money on these books, go out and find fantasy books written by authors of color, like I should have done. I'm definitely going to hit up the bookstore soon and try to find some, books written by Native American authors, because this needs to stop. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was pretty long and got kind of rambly in the end, especially when I was quoting sections from The Golden Compass, but I just had to read those quotes to you. How egregious are those? Anyway, next video is going to be about... So hopefully you all look forward to that one. If you want to become a patron, it's only $2 a month, and I have a $5 tier if you want your name in the ending credits. Thank you so much to the patrons that I have now, and of course to my subscribers. You make my day every day. So thank you so much. If you like this video, please give it a like, leave a comment, share it with someone, subscribe and ring the bell, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.